Thanks for being here today. Today is the second video in the series on the subject of talking to people, discussing being a cross-dresser with partners, with other people in your life, for example, friends, family, those kind of people. And today we're going to talk about the subject of getting a conversation going when this is a known entity. So this assumes that you have either been caught or the subject of cross-dressing is known between you and the other person. They know who you are, and I'm assuming things have not gone so well in the past and you're struggling to bring this back up again and struggling to move the conversation forward. So the first thing I would say is that most of the advice that I gave that has worked for me in the past, in my first video about raising your first conversation or having time, most of that advice is going to be relevant to this as well. So just to recap that, finding time to, or setting up time to talk to someone, but not waiting for it to come up organically, that's not going to happen. You're not going to suddenly find that a perfect opportunity presents itself to have a chat. So setting up the time when you're going to be available to talk, asking for time to talk about the subject. This is slightly different because if things have been going negatively, then trying to set up opportunities to talk with someone who maybe doesn't want to talk or said they don't want to talk is much harder. But in theory, the idea still stands. Trying to find ways to express yourself and ask for time to talk about the relationship is still a good way of making sure that you have time available and you are able to structure something that you can actually get something done in that available time. The other bits of advice I gave in the last video about not forcing things onto people, asking questions yourself, trying to get a conversation going, all of these are still relevant points that would work in future conversations, and specifically around finding this area of, what is your truth? What is the firm ground on which you will stand, the truth that you can come back to anytime the conversation gets too difficult or has wandered off into a sort of meandering direction, or anytime you find yourself in uncertain territory, when you find yourself challenged by something, coming back to this idea of, no, this is who I am, this is my truth, this is me, these are the things that I am, being able to come back to that and to drive that home to the other person is, for me, critical. I certainly found this critical myself, was that I had to tell my wife, I would guess I've said the phrase, I'm not gay, to my wife, maybe 50 to 100 times in the last 3.5 years. This has come up constantly. You're not going to change someone's mind. You're not going to reset how someone thinks about these things in one conversation. It's going to be built up based on trust. It's going to be built up based on communication. And this is why I think that communication needs to be maintained. So the first thing is, let's assume that this is a relationship you want to maintain. Okay? If it's a relationship you don't care about, it's a relationship that's irrevocably broken, then there really isn't much that I could say that I think would help to address that. But this is a relationship that you're invested in, and it's a relationship that is still working, albeit based on a falsehood, based on maybe a denial that you're a crossdresser, or based on ignoring the fact that you're a crossdresser, and you want to bring that up, then that's something that I've experienced and something I think can be worked on. So I've been through periods where we maybe haven't discussed anything for 6 months in our relationship. So we've maybe not discussed anything for 6 months. It's not come up. Again, you wait for the right time. It doesn't happen. And quite early on, I decided that I would try to ensure that even if it was an argument, even if it wasn't necessarily healthy, that I made it clear that this wasn't going to go away. You can hide it, you can paper over it, you can deny its existence, but it's there. It's been there. In my case, it's been there since puberty. So, 30 odd years, it's been part of my life. I can acknowledge that it's part of my truth, the firm ground on which I stand. I've been this way for over 30 years. There's no reason to expect it's going to change. Either diminishing change or increasing change. And that's really the key point. If you're trying to find a way to talk to your partner about this and get this out there, for me, the best way to broach the subject is to raise the conversation of your future. When you are looking to frame a conversation, how do we pick this up again? We've tried talking about it in the past, maybe things haven't worked particularly well. How are you going to bring that back into a conversation again? And for me, I always took the view that what we were talking about was our future. Whether this is with your partner, your parent, your sibling, what you're trying to do is to find a way to create a joint future that you can invest in together. Now, with a partner, obviously, this is much more tricky potentially, because you've both had to contribute so much already. You've made commitments that you make implicitly with friends and family that you don't necessarily make in quite the same way. So you've if it's a wife or husband, for example, you've already kind of made that sign up to say this is how we're going to be together. So in all likelihood, you will be perceived as having shifted the direction of the relationship in a way that wasn't what someone else signed up to. And I think that's what it really kind of comes down to, is that it takes a long time for people to be able to understand these things, but you still have to be able to have regular conversations about them and to advance the conversation, or essentially you're just, beating a dead horse. And I think this is where the honesty comes into it. And this is part of the problem, is I always felt that in our marriage there was a compromise we could reach with my wife that was workable for both of us. And I have to compromise on what I would like to be able to do. And my wife has had to compromise from what she thought she was getting married to. Now, it took time for her to understand that fundamentally I'm exactly the same person. I simply express myself quite differently from time to time. And, we are making advances, we are moving forward, which is amazing. And again, I tend to keep myself quite in check about how enthusiastic I get about these things, because you can always get backward steps coming in the future and you never really know what's going to happen. But at the moment, the way that we have continued to advance the conversation over this 10-year period has led us to where we are today. And we've had whole periods where we didn't make much progress at all, and we went backwards and we ignored things. And I've tried to keep the conversation going and essentially tried to say, look, there are some quite dispassionate facts that are here. I am who I am. I can't change what I am. I don't feel shame for what I am. Therefore, I don't feel the need to hide what I am, but I also don't feel the need to advertise it either. So it is who I am. So there we are. There's not much more to say about that. I was able to clearly try to articulate our future together as a couple, and what we would be doing and what we were doing with our daughter, and what our life would be like. But you have to, or certainly in my case, I had to be able to create an image of our future relationship, our future selves, how we would present ourselves, how we would be together, and what I saw as our future that wasn't so substantially different to what our future had been originally. And I think that's where the fear factor comes in. If you're effectively convinced that bringing this up would end your marriage, then you have this choice. you have the choice, which is to hide what you are. And it's a choice that many people make. And it's not a wrong choice. Hiding who you are and suppressing these things is not the wrong thing to do. But if you are determined that you want to move things forward and you want to continue to try and find a way to bring this into a relationship, then you have to have some idea of what your future looks like. What are you working towards? What do you want from this? And this is where I made a decision between, again, these things are on a spectrum if you want to put it that way. I tried to sort of think about where my wife thought we were, where I would ideally like us to be, and where I would be content. So there's where we were, I'm not happy. Where I'd love us to be, I'm over the moon, everything's amazing. And you notice this is all about me, by the way, deliberately so. And then there's where I'm content. Now, if I know where I can be content to where I can be joyous, and I know what that looks like, I know what would keep me content for the future, for the long term, and I know what would make me incredibly happy, I can describe those two scenarios to my partner. I can say, look, this is the most I want, this is the least I want. Very personal. What you're looking for is for your partner to do the same and see if there's any area where they overlap. If you can't be happy, if neither of you can be happy in an overlapping zone for the pair of you, then one of you has to be unhappy. There's no other way. One of you has to be unhappy if you're going to stay together. There is no way around that. The alternative is that you don't stay together. So being able to clearly identify, I took my time to understand, what did I want? What I wanted most of all was the freedom to basically go out whenever I wanted. I wanted to make trans friends, invite them around the house, have parties. I wanted to have a nice birthday party, have trans friends come around. I wanted to be able to, to have a big social life and have my wife come up with me to Leeds, to Sparkle, go to London. Some of the stuff we've been doing recently, that's what I wanted. I wanted all of that, and I wanted to be able to do it whenever I wanted to do it. If I'm honest, that's what I wanted. I wanted everything on my terms whenever I wanted it. What I was content with is what we agreed to do. We agreed that I would go out once a month and I would dress once a week, but my daughter wouldn't see, and I'd also be changed by the time my wife came home. That was where we agreed to be. I could have survived on less. I could have gone out once every 3 months. I could have survived on less. I could have asked for more, but that's where we settled. I was content with that amount. And my wife was content in an overlapping zone to allow that. And that was where we had our safe spot. And we lived that for 2 years. There were arguments. I remember a time I wanted to go out twice within 3 weeks, and that was immediately accused of being escalating. I'm trying to push too far, I'm trying to do too much, until I pointed out that the previous month I hadn't gone out at all. So, I could interpret going out once a month to being going out 12 times a year. Really, if sometimes they're a couple of weeks apart and sometimes they're 8 weeks apart, what difference does it make? That was kind of my argument. So I needed to build up that trust, and I needed to stick to that for some time. By the time we got to where we are today, that's probably an agreement we made about 3.5 years ago. We now are in a situation where if I still stick to that basic rule, I still stick to where we are, but with trust, with, let's say, belief in how I've stuck to what we agreed, with that I have earned a situation where we can now do a little bit more. But I haven't asked for more. I haven't said I want to go out twice a month. I've found that this is a nice way. I'm quite content with how often I go out. I could be out much more, but I'm a family person. I've got a family. I'm not out as much anyway. I'm in my 40s. So really this is a nice sort of level for me anyway. I don't want to get dressed up like this every day. So it's a nice level for me to stick to. I'm really quite content with where we are. Occasionally, there are a couple of events coming up in a month that I want to be able to go to, and now, if I talk to my wife about those, I will go to a couple of events in a month. So maybe I'll go out 16 times a year, 20 times a year. It's not massive, but it's enough to keep things working well. It's one of the reasons why I don't do videos outside where I'm wandering around, etc. is it's not something that I necessarily want to drag my wife into, and I don't want to have to justify the time to go off and do that kind of stuff. It's not really that important to me. So that's what we had to do. We had to build up trust. And I'm a firm believer in this, is know what you would really want to have ideally, know what you're content with, and try to find somewhere in there where you can overlap with your partner, overlap with your friend, overlap with your family member, so that there is a level where you can say, this is who we are, I live in this box, and here we go. To give you a very straightforward example, I thought about a situation recently with regard to my father. So I don't talk to my father about being a cross-dresser. We don't have conversations about this. We don't converse on the subject. He knows from stuff that happened way back in my past, but it's not something we've addressed in 25, maybe 28 years. It's been about 28 years since we've discussed this subject. So I'm happy with that. I don't care. I don't need my father to know. We're not going to bond over this thing. There's nothing here. But recently I thought, well, maybe we could change something about the relationship. And what I thought would be interesting is, we're always on the lookout for a babysitter. What I don't like about getting a babysitter is, if you get a local kid or a friend of the family or something going around, it would be very difficult for you to get dressed up like this and leave the house. So if we wanted to go out together to an event, we want to go to Pink Punters, or we wanted to go somewhere, then it would be useful to have a babysitter who could look after our daughter, but would know and would be comfortable with it. So I thought about speaking to my father. But knowing him as I know him, I would have set my minimum of what I would be comfortable with in terms of how that would work. And I would very happily present a situation saying, look, I'm a cross-dresser, you know that, I know that, I'm going to be leaving the house dressed. I don't need you to see me. I don't need you to say goodbye to me. I'm very happy if you keep the door closed. You can keep the curtains closed, keep the door closed. I'll walk out the house, I'll get in the car, I'll drive off. When I come back or come in, my wife comes see you, say hi, etc. I'll go straight upstairs. You won't even see me. And it's not because I'm ashamed of anything else. It's because I'm really comfortable with the two of us not having any further conversations on the subject. So that's the way that I would broach that subject with my father, to agree on a nice compromise where we can get something, and I don't ask anything from him that he doesn't want or isn't comfortable to be able to give. Setting a minimum level that would be satisfactory is a good place to start from. joint satisfaction is as good a place to start from as any when you're trying to raise these conversations for the future. So I think, like I said, I think if you're in a situation where you have already pretty much decided that this can never be brought up again, it's taboo, and if you bring it up again, it's over, this isn't going to work for you. If you're in a situation where you don't know how to raise this again, you don't know how to advance the conversation, you don't know how to bring this up one more time, my advice is be consistent, be predictable and regular about bringing this stuff up. I would bring things up every 6 months or so just to make sure it's clear. And, I would slip things into conversations as I do from time to time. Just say, I'm a cross-dresser. Represent your community. That's another thing as well. If you are in a situation with someone who knows you're a cross-dresser, feel free to put your opinion forward on the subject. Don't leave the subject. If the subject of, I don't know, Caitlyn Jenner comes up, or Eddie Izzard, or whatever else, if something comes up in culture that you can discuss, then get your point across. Feel free to make it clear that you stand with a particular community. Think about your local Pride event. Announcing or starting a conversation that you want to go along to a Pride event, in drab, you can go along in male mode. Doesn't make a difference. I took my wife 2 years ago to Brighton Pride because Brighton Pride's a great place to go and see things that are just not in your normal sphere of sight, not things you normally see. Once you've seen a guy dancing on an open-top lorry wearing a costume made almost exclusively of dildos, it puts other things into perspective. And it's helpful to be able to have that kind of normalized influence. Look for events, look for things you can go along to. It doesn't have to be counseling, but look for things that you can go to where you can express solidarity with a community that is a healthy, good, honest, decent community that's quite liberal, it's quite free thinking, it's good to know that there are lots of people out there like you. So that would be my advice, is find ways to find events, find subjects where you can express your opinion, firmly putting yourself with this community, with the LGBT community, and own that. Make sure that's clear. Express it. Raise your children that way. Go into conversations. I have relatives who are, to my mind, racist. The old me, because they're relatives, you don't say anything, but you just let these things go because that's who they are. The new me doesn't do it anymore. When certain relatives of mine bring up how awful someone looked in a dress, or have you seen that thing, what was that thing we saw on television the other day, and they're referring to a trans person, I don't let that lie anymore. I will bring that up and I will say, no, that's not on. You don't talk to people about that, like that. You don't talk about people that way. These are human beings. They deserve respect. And if you're promoting that kind of normalization of the culture that you're a part of, this subculture, you can find that will float into conversations, provided the person you're engaged with is open-minded, provided they are open to conversations and this topic and moving this structure forward, then you've got something to build on. But you need to live it. It's no good simply hiding it and bringing it up every now and again. Live it as the man. So if you're a male to female cross-dresser, live it as a man. Represent your community as a man. Represent your community in conversations with your partner, your parents, your friends, your family, etc. And don't feel afraid to support that community and to help educate people around you about the type of person you are. just because you think it might make them ask questions about whether you're in that community. That was always my concern. Don't bring up anything about cross-dressers. Don't have an opinion on cross-dressing, because people might think that you're a cross-dresser. You know, I don't think that way anymore. Have your opinions, help educate the people around you, raise your children to be tolerant to you when you tell them. And yeah, do the same with partners, friends, loved ones, etc. as much as you can, and just be honest to that community. Again, from that firm place of knowing what your truth is. What kind of person are you? Where do you stand? And then push that out into the people around you. Push that knowledge of who you really are to the people around you as consistently and regularly as you can. Whether you're dressed, drab, trying to have a specific conversation about the future of your relationship, or just having a chat about Big Brother. I hate Big Brother, I hate celebrity television, but yeah, there was an opportunity. We had a Courtney What's-Her-Face on she's gorgeous, on Celebrity Big Brother. So, you know, opportunity to support and defend, if necessary, a member of your community. Worth taking time to do it. Anyway, so that's my views on bringing this stuff up again. It is very difficult, but you still have to find that time. You need to be able to say, I'm going to allocate this time to having this conversation. Try and keep things ticking over regularly. And like I said, be confident in who you are. Be secure about what your truth is, and promote that to the people around you, even if it's just in a day-to-day way where you won't take crap on a certain subject. And that's something that I've done. I've needed to show people that I am really very sincere about tolerance for trans people. They don't know I'm a crossdresser, but my sincerity about tolerance and support and acceptance of trans people comes up in everyday conversations I have with someone. If an opportunity comes up, I will defend my community, regardless of what someone knows about me. So once you've done that, once you've set your stall out and people know how you're going to react to certain things, you will be promoting your life view. And I think that's really important, particularly with partners. It's important that they know that you're serious about this. It's not necessarily just a fetish thing. If for you it is a fetish, and you know, I think this is one of the key things, just to add this on very quickly, at the risk of rambling a bit. Some people want too much from their partners, I find. You want to insist that your partner joins in, that they embrace it. If you want that, because maybe it's a fetish thing, maybe it's a kink thing, maybe you need their enjoyment. I don't understand. I view it like hobbies. It's enough for me that I do this. I don't need to drag my partner into it. I want to be accepted. I want it to be open and understood, and I want this to be something that we all know about. But I have no interest in it being a joint thing. I'm not pushing for that. It's happened organically, which is the best way. But I didn't insist, I don't insist. Let me give you a list of things that I've never ever bothered to try to bring up in conversation with my wife. I've never tried to insist with my wife that we sleep together, that she sleeps with Juliette. I've never tried to insist to my wife that we have, that I can just be Juliette around the house and wander around whenever I want to. I don't do that. I've never insisted that she has to come somewhere with me. I've always left it open. I've always said, let's do something nice, let's go out for dinner. And I'll give you a very specific example about kinky boots. So when talking to my wife, I always said, if I'm going out, don't tell me, just if you want to come, come. Don't even need to tell me, just get ready and join me in as I'm going out. And that way you'll always know I'm going somewhere that you would be okay coming to. But more importantly, if you ever feel like just coming out with me, arrange a babysitter, don't tell me, just come. I'd love you to come with me, but no pressure. And I don't pressure her to come with me. When my wife first suggested going to see Kinky Boots, she didn't suggest that I go dressed. She proposed Kinky Boots, and I said, that sounds fantastic. I'd love to go see that. The only thing is, and it's not a hesitation, yes, let's go and see it. The only thing is, it feels like a really nice opportunity to go to something as Juliette. Similar to when I went to see Placebo last year in concert. And that would have been a great concert to go to as Juliette, but we went together. So I simply said, it feels like something that would be really good to go to as Juliette, and that's my only hesitation about going. It feels like a nice Juliette event. Which opened the conversation, and within 2 minutes we'd agreed, okay, well then let's do that. It's not something that you can force on people, and I've patiently waited and I've patiently spent my time being incredibly confident about who I am. I don't take crap about who I am, but I don't push it on other people either. And as a result, I've essentially said to my wife, look, you need to accept what I am, who I am, but you don't need to join in. And over time, the acceptance has led to a couple of occasions when we have done things together. We've been out 3 times now together. Once to a party a couple of years ago, once to Pink Punters earlier this year, and to see Kinky Boots a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know what will happen next. I don't have big expectations about what will happen next. But if you lay the groundwork and if you're firm and clear about who you are, you've got as much chance of evolving the relationship as any other way. It won't evolve if you hide things. So that really is the sort of main crux of my advice with regard to this topic. So any questions, please let me know down below. If you have any specific things you want to ask me, if this is something you've been thinking about, if you're debating, should I tell someone, should I not, then please do get in contact with me. You can do that through my website, which is www.julietnoir.uk, or you can get me through my email address, which is juliettesnoir@gmail.com. Again, any comments, please let me know down below. And yeah, I'm here to try and help, happy to talk to someone. And if you want me to try and help provide answers or input on this thing, I'm always more than happy to do so. So thanks for watching this video today. Feel free to like, share and subscribe. And as ever, bye. Bye.